On this episode of Scammer Stories, the absolute best part about being in this world of scumbag scammers is being able to meet women like the one you're about to hear. So many women and men reach out to me for guidance on their mother or father, and I actually end up learning from them. Now, this episode is a little unusual because Jackie's mom, or we're calling her Jackie anyway, her mother actually listens to this podcast, so we have to be careful. Can you believe that she got her mother to listen to a podcast about romance scams? That alone is incredible. Now, Jackie's a young career woman and definitely a go-getter who's figured out so many things that I wanted to know. Remember, that's why I started this podcast years ago. There wasn't a lot of information online at the time of my mom's scam, but Jackie figured out what to do without starting her own podcast. You can listen to her then if you need more, and there is more. I'll send you her email. Her mother is part of a celebrity scam. Remember, this is a judge-free zone, and the celebrity scam victims get the most shaming. So here's Jackie's story. So just basically tell us a little bit about what part of the country you're in and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am in Massachusetts. I am an only child. It's just me and my mother. My father died a few years back, so my mother's been living on her own since then. We live about an hour apart from each other, so we don't see each other in person that often. But prior to this, we did talk on the phone just about every day.
Okay, so when did this nightmare start and how did it happen?
So I found out about it on Christmas at dinner. She was over at my house, and when you just get the feeling that something isn't quite right, and you just have some instinct, you can tell there's something going on. And so when she got up to go to the bathroom, I grabbed her phone and I looked at it, and I saw these Google chat messages that were referring to her and this person as my husband and my wife. And I had all of probably 90 seconds to look at it. I was completely horrified. And then I just pretended I didn't see anything, put it away, and then figured, once she's gone, I'm going to do a deep dive and figure out what this is all about.
Wow. So you had to put on a poker face and just continue to have normal conversation after that.
Yep. Well, she was ready to go home anyways, because she was going home to talk to the scammer. So what did she want to stay and linger with me for anyways?
Yeah, real person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then what happened after that? How did it progress?
So after she left, we kind of went back through, she was on Instagram, and I remembered that earlier in the year, I had seen some posts that she did that they were very weird. She's not somebody that posts on Instagram. She doesn't have Facebook from what I know, but she follows people on Instagram. And I remember the one post that she did, it was earlier in the year, and it was a picture of this person sitting in a cubicle in an office, holding up a sign saying, "I am the only one. Don't believe the other people." And I specifically remember asking her about this, and then she got mad at me and hung up on me. So that seems to be the trend with her. Anytime I catch something, I get yelled at.
Yep.
So I remembered that. It was, so the celebrity was Vince Gill. And I remembered seeing that. I remembered seeing some messages, an Instagram message that she had sent me, and they were links to download the app Viber, which I had no idea at the time what it was. And obviously now we know that that was something that they were trying to get her to move from Instagram over to Viber. So it turns out that she couldn't figure out Viber. She couldn't figure out WhatsApp. And so they ended up creating a Gmail account for her. And then she was communicating with them on Google Chat.
Is Viber like WhatsApp?
I think it's similar. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't think it's super common. I think in the scam space it is, but the goal is always just to get you off the platform as soon as possible, because those accounts get reported and then they, lose their clients, so to speak.
And you said that she met, quote unquote, Vince Gill when she went and commented on one of his pages and someone commented.
Yeah, so she was following the official, the actual real Vince Gill. I'm sure it's a managed account. It's not him. And she commented, "Oh, we love you in Boston. We hope you come to Boston." And then after looking at that, we can see that other people had liked it. And then we started looking at people that were following my mother. and they were fake Vince Gill accounts. So things that were like official, but the L was a one instead of the L, or, putting in like extra spaces or, zeros and things. So it's like not the real Vince Gill. But once we were able to get the phone, once we did the intervention with her, we could see that there were messages from several different scammers that contacted her on Instagram, which then made sense why she had that picture that was clearly an AI generated picture. There's no way that Vince Gill is sitting in an office cubicle holding up a sign. It's just not going to happen.
Okay, so tell us about the intervention. How did you do that? How did you pull that off? And what was the outcome?
Sure. So the way we kind of built the case after she left and we kind of figured out what had happened on Instagram, I reached out to one of her, and I'm using air quotes, friends that she traveled with earlier in the year, and they were going to see some Vince Gill shows. And so I said, I'm just going to check with her. She may know what's going on. And when I called her, she said, yes, I know everything, which to me says, first of all, you're not a great friend because you could have said something. I mean, you can easily find me online, try to, do something, talk some sense into her, but clearly not that important. So she said that my mother had actually asked her for money to make another investment with Vince Gill. And she said no, obviously, because she could see where that was headed. And from that point forward, we knew if this went on for as long as it did, which was almost a year, that must have meant it was a significant financial impact in terms of what she gave to them to keep them around for that long. And so I had a little bit of knowledge of retirement and savings accounts that my mother had. And so I was able, using my power of attorney document that my parents had done like 10 years ago, I was able to contact those brokerages and find out what was left. And much to my, disappointment, there was not much left of anything. She had basically cashed everything out to support this.
And so how is she living now? How's her quality of life?
So we're about 6 months out now from the intervention, and I don't think anything has really changed for her. She continues to work. I think now I manage all of her finances, and I've done so since the day of the intervention. And going back to the intervention, I actually filed a report right after we figured this all out with the elder abuse folks, and they assigned a caseworker. And lo and behold, when I spoke with him, he said that he had already been assigned to my mother a couple of months prior. And it was because one of the banks that she was banking at, they caught on to it when she was doing the wire transfers. And they said, there's definitely something going on. We think you're a victim of a scam. Of course, my mother denied that. And of course, she went back to her car and went back to the Google chat and told the scammer, the manager said that you're a scammer. And he said, well, do you believe them? She said, of course not. So, she was totally buying what he was selling and had no interest in what the bank manager was saying. So the bank manager was the one that filed the initial report with a protective service worker. And I will say the worker that we were assigned, he was amazing. He was wonderful. He had so much patience where I really didn't have any, because as, a daughter coming into this on Christmas and not expecting any of this, I was so mad. I'm still so mad. And I know that, we want to treat victims a certain way, but it's really hard to get over the anger because it really hasn't changed her life, but it's changed my life completely.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. And you just lost your father not too long ago, so you're still grieving.
Yeah.
Even her just dating anyone would be hard, let alone something this frustrating.
Totally.
You've really, of all the daughters and sons I've talked to, you're one of the ones that's really, really took a deep dive into this thing. You've got boxes, you've got emails. It's really consumed a lot of your time. Tell us some of the things you've done.
So I think the first thing, once we, had the intervention with her, I think it was building the team of people that were going to help us figure all of this out. So we contacted an elder law attorney who then referred us over to a bankruptcy attorney. The police were really wonderful to work with. We have a great detective that we're working with who's been following the case and trying to figure out, I think these things move very slowly. And according to what the detective said, they get at least 2 of these cases a day. I don't know that they're all at the same amount of money, but still any kind of financial crime is bad. So he's been really great to work with. Thankfully, I have an awesome accountant who helped to figure out what the taxes mean after you liquidate all of your retirement and 401k in 1 year. So she's been really great. I would say I have a social worker through my primary care that's been just a great sounding board and trying to figure out how do we try to get help for her, because there's the whole financial impact of it, but there's also the medical impact. And, initially her primary care said, well, she's just lonely. Like, okay, but she might have been lonely when it started, but you can't tell me that you can give away that much money just by being lonely. It just doesn't make sense to me. And so I was very persistent and I pushed and I was calling. I kept, the day that this started, I started a Google Doc and I'm up to like almost 40 pages now. And every phone call I make, every person I talk to, any interaction I have related to it, I document it so that way I have everything. And I had called her primary care several times and they wouldn't talk to me, obviously because of HIPAA. They can't do anything with me. And so finally, a couple of months ago, I wrote them a letter and it was about 3 pages long. And I detailed all of the things that I learned from the scam. I said, this is a person who met someone online. They had this sob story, which was his wife, Amy Grant, was divorcing him because he was being accused of raping some young girl in a hotel. And that this girl wanted $350,000 basically to keep quiet that this ever happened. And so try to tell me how you can believe that and then support that and send someone money to give to someone to keep them quiet. It just, none of this makes sense. I find myself every day, it almost feels like you're living in a movie and none of it makes sense.
Yeah, I still feel that way. My family and I will get together and we'll look at each other still every time we get together and say to each other, did that really happen? And what the hell?
Mm-hmm. And I feel like the community of people that I have found, like people like you that I found after this happened, like you can talk to each other in a way that you can't talk to other people that just don't get it, And it's funny, I have people at work that are like, oh, what's the latest with Momgate? I'm like, well, but I'm also, I think I'm not quiet about it. I share what happened because I don't want it to happen to anyone else. And whatever I can do to tell the people I work with, be on the lookout for your parents, your grandparents, anybody could be a victim, right? And they say that everyone will eventually be scammed. It's not if you'll be scammed, it's when you'll be scammed. So the more that people can be aware of these kinds of things, I think the better. It's really just, it has such a huge impact on my life and I would never want that to happen to someone else.
So talk more about that because you've intercepted her emails and things, and this has really consumed a lot of your life. How has your life changed?
Well, I will say for one thing, I've kind of reprioritized my work and professional life. So the things that you thought were important are, it's just it's not that important anymore. I get the job done and it's fine. But really, truly taking care of her affairs has taken up so much of my time. I do all of her banking. I have to manage that on a weekly basis. We took her phone away from her because I knew obviously that she had all of this data on there. The police had to take everything and download all of that. So they have the history of all the conversations she had. But I ended up giving her one of those jitterbug phones and she didn't know how to use it, which was perfect because then I didn't have to worry so much about her doing anything on her phone. And then she demanded her iPhone back. So I gave it back, but I have controls on it now so I can see what she's doing on it, which gives me a little bit more certainty. But at the same time, I honestly don't know because as you know, scammers, they can potentially lose one of their victims. They will send them a new phone. If that's what's going to take care of them, like continuing to send them money or help facilitate and mule money, they will send a phone to her. I don't know for sure, but I feel like we've kind of gone from the previous life of this scam to now the muling part of it. But I don't know for certain because I just have no way of knowing things that are beyond the scope that I can see.
And I wonder, it's frustrating enough when your mom is being scammed by a romance scammer, but when a celebrity is attached to it, is that even more frustrating for you?
It's very frustrating because I've seen that there are plenty of other celebrities out there that have come forward that, their names have been used in scams and they've come forward and said to their fans, I will not contact you. I will not ask you for money. They're very upfront about that. I think The Rock is one of the people that's like that. People use his name all the time. And he said, I will never ask you for money. And so once we had a little bit of time under our belts with figuring out what was going on, I had reached out to Vince Gill's PR person. And I just said, my mother was involved in this scam. This person is using his name. And I really think, like, I want you to be aware. And if there's some message that you can put on his Facebook, on Instagram to say, like, I'm not asking fans for money, I'm not contacting you. And it was radio silence. And I sent it twice. The protective service worker also reached out to someone in his management team, I don't know who, and said, told them what happened. And they basically said, if she's dumb enough to do that, there's nothing we can do to help. So
Don't use that
that's
word
not
either. That's
helpful.
not how, I hate that. How can they be so
Yeah.
stupid or how can they be so dumb? Mm-mm.
Yeah. And it's easy to say because when we're looking at it with a clear mind from the outside, of course, but like, that's one of the things that I've learned. Like, you just don't say that. If you want to have a productive conversation with a victim, you do not say that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really hard to not say it, but you can't. And
Well, I could find something stupid that everybody's done in their life and point it out.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Including
I've done
my
plenty
own.
of stupid things. Yes.
And most of them involve men. So
Always.
speaking of, how's this affected your personal life? Are you dating or are you leery?
Yeah, no. So I have a boyfriend. We've been together for 4 years now, and he's wonderful. Like, he's really been helpful in trying to figure out a lot of the financial aspects of what happened. We created a folder together, and he was putting in. We went to the bank, we got all the documents, all of the wires, and he was helping me put together spreadsheets and figure out when things happened and how much and from where and all of that. So he's been really helpful. And sometimes I just have days that I'm like, I can't, like, I'm not doing anything today. I can't do anything. It's exhausting. But on my days that I work remotely at home, I spend a lot of time working on this stuff for her. And it's sad because she doesn't appreciate it. And everybody that I talk to, they say similar to you, like, she's so lucky to have someone doing this for her. And it's like, but she doesn't see it. She just yells at me.
And the significant others, like mine and yours, just the amount of time they have to spend listening to us is probably insane.
The listeners, there's so much to say. And it's often the same thing. It's like, I can't believe this.
I know, just when you think you can't be shocked anymore, you're like, oh, wait until I tell you the latest. I know.
Oh, yes. I mean, I say it's like kind of like an onion. It's like peeling back an onion. It's quiet for a little bit and then, oh, no, there's another layer. Yeah. There's something new.
Okay. So you said that right before we got on the phone, you were talking to your mom. How'd that go?
So I just spoke with her and she, talking to her, it's very difficult. I think there's some element of like a cognition issue happening that hopefully we'll find out more about. But talking to her about even dinner today, for example, I said, are you having dinner? So I'm having leftovers. From where? Oh, this place. What place? She doesn't remember. But then I say, how come you had, I referenced something about the scam last year and she remembers it like that. Like, she can remember everything that they said, all of the interactions, which of course were all online. Nothing ever happened in person or on the phone. And if it did happen on the phone, it was AI, and she doesn't understand how that stuff works.
So you think there's some sort of cognitive decline or dementia or something, other than just loneliness, like the doctor said?
Yeah, it feels like there has to be. And honestly, even before this happened last year, I had noticed some things that she was doing. Like, when I would ask a question, she would respond with the question, and just things that didn't really make sense to me. And obviously, having known her for my entire life, I can see the decline. And after my father died, she was fine. And, but then COVID hit. And I think the isolation of that, and the lack of activity and just not being, surrounded by people all the time, I think that changed things.
What did she do for a living, or did she stay at home?
So she worked full time. She was in the fine jewelry industry, which was very interesting to the scammer. He was extremely interested in that.
Oh, yes.
As I can tell from the chat history.
He wanted to know all about the fine diamonds and emeralds and gold. Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the Rolexes. Yep.
Where do you think her scammer is from? Do you think it's Nigeria?
Yeah. So the detective confirmed the person's based in Nigeria. They are aware of one mule here in the United States. That's another elderly woman. So I suspect that she was, same thing, had the full life cycle of the scam. She was giving money. And then when she ran out of money, they had her come and, quote, work for them. And they said that she would keep a portion of it and then send the rest onto the scammer.
And are they going to go after her? They're starting to go after the muling.
They haven't said anything about it. It's not a very high
Mm.
priority unless this person is like working with a lot of scammers. I feel bad. I mean, it's an elderly person. They don't belong in prison. And I think of somebody like my mother, and if that's what she's doing, she doesn't belong in prison. She belongs in some kind of medical facility to undo the brainwashing, if that's even possible. Like, she is 100% brainwashed by this. And even though the police, the detective, the doctor, all of these people have said that this is not real, but they still believe it. And you can tell. And even a family friend just spoke with her for the first time in a few years a couple of weeks ago. And they reached out to me after to say, oh, your mom told me about the scam and that she's also very good friends with Vince Gill. So it doesn't make any sense. I'm like, why are you volunteering this information to someone? And why are you very good friends with him? And that's the kind of thing that I feel like the healthcare system really has failed in a way, because unless she is suicidal in imminent danger, they can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But you're telling me that this person who's given as much money as she has is safe to be alone. And it just, yeah, just something doesn't add up.
So do you have any more moves? I mean, what are you going to do next? You've already done so much.
Yeah, so I think, it's figuring out what the next steps are for bankruptcy, what that looks like. And then I think on the medical side, it's what can we find out there? What can we learn? Because obviously, my concern is if there is something wrong, let's figure out what that means, and what does that mean for her living situation? Because she lives alone now, and if she needs extra help, I live too far away. And, just what does that look like? I'm a planner. So for me, I find comfort in having a plan and having multiple plans. So it's like, okay, well, if this is the diagnosis, then this is what we do. And if this is the case, then we'll do something different, but I try to educate myself as much as possible on what all of those options look like. A few months ago, after this happened, I went and did a deep dive on, senior retirement communities. And I thought I found the perfect one. And I said, this is absolutely perfect. You age in place here. You can go in as independent. When you need to move to assisted, they have it. If you need memory care, they have that. But the cost of these services and these places, it's so much. And even trying to put all of the money together, it's still not enough.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been an education for me too, like what I need to be saving for 30 years from now. So it's, helpful in that way, but not helpful for her today.
Okay, so any advice that you'd give to someone in your position, another son or a daughter, from maybe something you learned or?
So I would say before anything even has like an opportunity to happen, I think for people that have a good relationship with their family, I would start early, having conversations, being proactive for your parents, your grandparents, putting together what their estate plan looks like, which would include doing a power of attorney document, which that has been very helpful for me in most cases, having that. And if I did not have that, it would have been much slower for me to try to access information. But I think also just having an open discussion with your family about money, and especially knowing where they have accounts, that was helpful, because I had asked my mother after my father died to put me on the accounts with her, and she refused to do that. And I think I need to clarify that I'm like, I'm not looking for your money. I'm not trying to take anything from you, but I need to know where this is and how to access it if something happens to you. And she gave me an email, I think it was like 3 years old, of a few different accounts that she had and the account numbers and what the balances were back then. So that's literally what I had to go on, was information that was 3 years old. I guess, unfortunately, going through all of those and finding out there was nothing left was a little upsetting.
Jackie says you can email her with questions if you'd like. Send a request to me, April, at scammerstoriespodcast@gmail.com, and I'll forward it on to her. I've already done that with another woman we met in the town hall we did. By the way, if you missed it, I didn't post the recording because I only got half of it recorded due to the picking the wrong platform that kicks you off after 30 minutes. Live and learn, I guess. Plus, the first of anything is always a little wonky, and I need to get at least one under my belt before I give it another try. Other than that, A lot of exciting things in the works that I can't talk about yet, which is killing me. And you may have noticed my Facebook posts about missing mom. So here's what that's about. I'm now in full blown menopause, and I want to talk to my mom, of course. I have some pretty bad menopause anxiety and exhaustion, and we're trying to get that regulated. It'd be nice to ask her how her body adjusted. But meantime, I'll talk to friends and family. It's no joke, though. If you have a story you would like to share, just email me, April, at scammerstoriespodcast@gmail.com, and we'll see you next time, Scammer Warriors.